Premier Ford, alongside Energy Minister Stephen Lecce, are making an announcement at the Darlington Energy Complex.
Of new transmission lines. It's why we're here refurbishing and expanding our nuclear fleet on time and on budget. In fact, we were here just a few weeks ago to announce the completion of the refurbishment of Unit 4 at Darlington nearly 5 months ahead of schedule. And just yesterday with Sam, our government launched the largest energy efficiency program in Canadian history, all to reduce your energy bills. And that is Ontario's value proposition to the world as we build on time and on budget. And it's one that puts us in a unique position when it comes to exporting our nuclear advantage into the US and to markets around the world. Ontario, as the Premier has mentioned, is a dependable democratic partner. In an increasingly volatile world, the choices before American friends are standing with Ontario or with regimes abroad who do not share our freedom-loving values. Because we know, our Premier knows, that confrontation and conflict does not lead to a better outcome for anyone. And the Premier of Ontario is standing up for Ontarians and for all Canadians, for our jobs, for our supply chain and Canadian economic interests. Today's plan reaffirms that our Premier and government desire to build bridges and for generations of prosperity for Americans and Ontarians alike. And with that, please welcome the man with the vision and the plan to protect our economy, Ontario's Premier, Doug Ford. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone, and it's a real pleasure to be here today alongside Minister Lecce, Minister Oosterhoff, and MPP Patrice Barnes and Lauren Coe and Will Boma, which is my parliamentary assistant for intergovernmental affairs. And Will, I know you've been busy, but before I begin, I want to acknowledge the Boilermakers, all the team here at OPG, and I want to congratulate Nicole for being the CEO of the Ontario Power Generation. That's a big job, and my champion, Mayor Foster, as well. Mayor, you're hiding back there. But I'll tell you, he's an absolute champion, and a big thank you to an incredible team at the Ontario Power Generation for hosting us at their Darlington nuclear facility, and for the critical work they do day in and day out, powering our province. Thank you. Friends, in less than 2 weeks, a new administration will take office in the White House. This transition marks a pivotal moment for both Canada and the United States. That's why, over the past few months, I've been meeting with congressmen and women, U.S. senators, and governors from every region of America across both sides of the political aisle. I've promoted Ontario's close economic partnership with the United States, a relationship built on nearly $500 billion in balanced two-way trade, and I've raised concerns about the 25% tariffs President Trump is threatening on goods and services entering the U.S. from Canada. These tariffs would be devastating for both of our economies. They disrupt deeply integrated supply chains, create massive uncertainty for investors, raise costs for businesses, and put countless jobs at risk on both sides of the border. It doesn't have to be this way. We can achieve so much more if we work together, and Canada needs to do its part. First, we need the federal government to invest in our military to meet and exceed our NATO funding commitments. Second, the federal government needs to turn words into actions by implementing its border security plan. This needs to include permanent funding increases for the RCMP, the Canada Border Services Agency, to put more boots at the border. And we need highly visible activity to give our U.S. allies the confidence they need that we're doing our part. Ontario is also stepping up. Yesterday, we launched Operation Deterrence, our plan to crack down on illegal cross-border activities. Led by 200 dedicated Ontario provincial police officers, they'll work alongside frontline and specialty officers with access to drones, helicopters, fixed-wing aircraft, boats, off-road vehicles, and foot patrol, all dedicated to protecting the safety and security of families and communities on both sides of the border. As I've met and talked with U.S. lawmakers, I've also been listening. I've heard significant concerns about how China is ripping off American workers by hijacking global supply chains, to unfairly benefit Chinese companies at the expense of U.S. industry and American communities. I've heard loud and clear, America has had enough. Now, U.S. lawmakers are undertaking one of the most ambitious economic and geopolitical shifts in decades, as America decouples from China and its global proxies. This won't be easy. It will require long-term thinking, it will require dedication, and most of all, it will require friends and allies. Canada's here to help. Working together, Canada and the U.S. can be the richest, most successful, safest, most secure countries on the planet. Working together, we can usher in a new American and Canadian century. A time of unprecedented growth, job creation, security, and prosperity. We do so by building Fortress AmCan. Fortress AmCan is a renewed alliance between America and Canada that's a beacon of stability, security, and long-term economic growth on both sides of the border. Fortress AmCan is a vision that respects each country as proudly independent, a vision that celebrates what we can achieve together, a true partnership where Canada and the U.S. align on shared priorities, achieving free, fair, and balanced trade, growing our economies, accelerating resource development, and protecting our borders and our communities. A cornerstone of Fortress AmCan, this renewal alliance involves achieving energy security to power economic growth on both sides of the border. Ontario is already taking bold steps. We're leading North America's largest expansion of nuclear energy, including the first small modular reactor in the G7. We're refurbishing reactors at Darlington and Pickering, and we're launching historic energy procurements to meet growing demand while preparing Ontario to become a major exporter of clean energy. Already, our energy grid sends enough electricity to power 1.5 million homes in the U.S., including states like Michigan, New York, and Minnesota. But to build Fortress AmCan, to realize this vision, there's more work to do. Fortress AmCan should be powered by energy of every type. Energy that's produced, consumed, and creates jobs in every region of our country. It starts by enhancing and building out the integrated AmCan energy and electricity grid to encourage more exports of Canadian energy and electricity to the U.S., including Ontario's clean nuclear energy to power economic growth on both sides of the border. To do so, I'm urging the federal government, U.S. lawmakers, and industry experts to join us in a new cross-border working group with the objective of cutting red tape and aligning the regulations that slow down building cross-border energy infrastructure, including transmission lines and pipelines, and to ensure both countries adhere to the best practices for power system security, protecting us against foreign interference, cyber attacks, terrorism, and extreme weather events. I'm also urging the federal government to help us achieve AmCan energy security sooner by streamlining the approval of new small modular and large nuclear reactors while protecting safe operations. As we do, we also need to build new and reinforce existing electricity transmission lines and the natural gas and oil pipelines that underpin our integrated energy and electricity grid and promote the flow of energy across borders. With these measures, we can power our economic growth, including new power-hungry data centers and artificial intelligence with clean and reliable energy, fueling economic growth across Canada and America while creating better jobs with bigger paychecks here at home. Friends, Fortress AmCan is an ambitious plan. It won't be easy and it won't happen overnight, but we owe it to workers in Ontario, across Canada, and the U.S. to act now. Many of these initiatives will require the federal government to step up to ensure that energy, trade, and security policies serve the best interests of Canadians and Americans alike. We will do what we can as a province, but the federal government will need to do their part too. Together, let's stop wasting time and ridiculous ideas about merging and instead focus on efforts on restoring the pride of Made in Canada and made in USA. Let's be unapologetic as we stand up for Canadian and American workers against the world. Together, let's usher in a new American and Canadian century. Let's build Fortress AmCan. Thank you for everyone joining us today, and may God bless the people of Ontario.
We will now open the floor for questions from the media. Please come to the mic and state your name and outlet. Just a reminder, it's one question and one follow-up. First question.
Good morning, Premier. Mark McAllister from City News.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
A lot of talk from you today about Canada as a whole rather than Ontario specifically. Just wondering why you feel the need to step up and speak on behalf of the entire country.
Well, right now, I've been blessed to be the chair of the Federation, and I never speak on behalf of all premiers. I always get a consensus, and we are meeting today, and we look forward to sitting down, making sure that we have a strong plan moving forward. There's a lack of leadership right now at the federal government, and someone has to stand up for Ontario, someone has to stand up for Canada. And I want to congratulate all the premiers, because they're doing the exact same thing as what I'm doing in their jurisdictions, and I appreciate everything that all the premiers from all the provinces and territories. We have a great group of premiers, fabulous, and I'm fortunate to have a great team representing Team Canada.
The term Fortress AmCan, you've been using it for a number of months now. Is there not a danger of it being misinterpreted in some way? You've now got the president-elect talking about an artificial border. He could be looking at Fortress AmCan very differently than you are.
Well, it's very, very simple. The people I've been speaking to, be it the governors or the senators or congresspeople, even if they're Republican or Democrat, they don't agree with what President Trump is proposing. Our country's not for sale. It will never be for sale. But I think we work together, have an incredible trade deal. We could be the most, richest, wealthiest, prosperous, safest jurisdiction anywhere in the world if we work together. We have the critical minerals that they need. We have the energy they need. We have a lot of things that they need. And, some Americans may sit back and think we can go it alone. Well, a message to my American friends, which I love, you can't go it alone. You know something, if this goes through, these tariffs, it's going to hurt millions of Americans. It's going to hurt millions of Canadian jobs. It's better we work together, take on the world, and we're unstoppable.
Morning, Premier. Lane Harrison, CBC News.
Hi.
What do you think, or how much do you think Trudeau can do to deal with Trump, given he's on his way out of his job?
Well, what we expect from the Prime Minister, we sent him a letter the other day, and he's agreed to meet in person on next Wednesday. And, the message is, you need to do everything you can to stop the tariffs. We need to see your plan. We need to see the plan that you announced on border security. There's one thing to put a plan out there. There's another thing to see absolute action happening. So we're going to hold his feet to the fire until the day he's no longer Prime Minister. He's still Prime Minister. He still has a responsibility to make sure that we avoid these tariffs at all cost and make sure that he secures the border and commits to the 2% NATO funding.
And when it comes to that looming change in Ottawa, do you think that Trump cares much who is Prime Minister of Canada, or do you think he kind of just has it in for the country in general?
Yeah, I can't speak for President Trump. I can tell you one thing, that we have a strong group of premiers representing the country right now. We're going to head down to Washington. I believe it's the first or second week in February, and we'll be representing Canada proudly. And we have a great relationship. Folks, as you know, this is all about building relationships. I'm on the phone every single day with governors, congresspeople, and senators every single day. And they're great people. They aren't saying a word. And I have a lot of friends in the U.S. I speak to. Not once have they said, Canada is the problem. I'll tell you who the problem is. China's the problem. Shipping in cheap parts into Mexico, and Mexico slapping a Made in Mexico sticker on it, shipping it up through the U.S. and Canada, costing American and Canadian jobs. That's unacceptable. And Mexico has to make a decision. You're either with Beijing or you're with Washington. I can tell you what Canadians are with. We're with Washington.
Hi, Premier. Alison Jones with the Canadian Press.
Hi.
The president-elect said yesterday that he doesn't need anything from Canada. So what makes you think that you'll find a willing partner to this plan?
Well, you know, with all due respect to the president, I don't know who his handlers are, who's misinforming him. Right now, we ship 4.3 million barrels of crude oil down to the U.S. 60% of their imports, energy imports, are coming from Canada. We keep the lights on with 1.5 million homes and businesses in the 3 states that I mentioned. We have critical minerals that get shipped across the border every day for their manufacturing capabilities and their military. And the list goes on and on and on. Saskatchewan produces uranium that gets shipped over to Ontario to be refined. And, you know, they wouldn't be able to survive without the uranium for their weapons. So we want to work with them. Nickel, up in Sudbury. We have some of the finest grade nickel in the world the Americans need to keep their manufacturing going. So, you know, I want to work with the president. I want to make sure we have a strong alliance. And when we work together, there's no one that can stop us. So we'll see what happens on January 20th, and then we'll react from there.
And have you had any conversations with U.S. officials or companies about this plan, looking to expand interties, pipelines, all of that? Or is this all just very preliminary at this point?
No, I've talked to many elected officials down there about our plan. I've talked to many CEOs. Some of the largest companies in the world, the CEOs wrote a letter to the president saying, you know, they just do not believe in these tariffs. They're so intertwined into their Canadian divisions. I met with 20 or 25 of the top CEOs in Canada just a couple of weeks ago when all the premiers were in. They're saying the same thing. This is going to hurt American and Canadian jobs. 9 million Americans wake up every morning in the U.S. to produce products for Ontario alone. Canada as a whole, the $1.3 trillion, we are their number 1 trading partner, even though Jesse Waters thinks we're number 2. We're number 1. I think he was counting pesos, not Canadian dollars, when he said they were number 1. But in saying that, we're the number 1 trading partner to 27 states as a country. As Ontario, 17 states, we're their number 1 export destination. So I'm sure his team, the senators and congresspeople, private sector business people are in his ear. But that's President Trump, right? We'll deal with him.
Good morning, Premier. Mike Walker, CTV News Toronto.
Hi, Mike.
With the president-elect appearing to double down on imposing the tariffs, you mentioned on Monday that there are several options on the table for Ontario in terms of retaliation. You have previously spoken about cutting off energy exports. Can you elaborate on what those other options are and how you came to those?
Well, without bulging to our friends in the U.S., we have a whole host of products that we ship up that we're going to be targeting, especially in the 17 states we deal with as their number 1 export destination. You turn up the heat on them. Believe me, they will be in the president's ear. Companies are laying people off because they aren't shipping, or they are shipping it at a 25% higher cost. And I use this example. Someone in Texas buys a pickup truck that's produced here in Oshawa, not far away from here. They typically would pay $60,000. Now, that same person in Texas is going to pay $75,000 if he puts tariffs on vehicles. And I know the president mentioned, we don't need to build cars. Well, Mr. President, that's not accurate at all. We buy as many cars from the U.S. as we ship down there. Majority of the cars that we do ship down, the parts, it's so. And the auto pack has been around since the 1960s. So we just need to work together. And I know the American people, I know them very well. They do not feel this way.
And just following up on the very first question you were asked from my colleague about kind of taking the lead role in the last few weeks, appearing kind of prime ministerial with this. Down the road, do you see yourself taking a more federal position?
You know, I appreciate that, but my main focus is to protect the people of Ontario. And as chair of the Federation, I have to make sure I represent all the premiers across the country, no matter from coast to coast to coast. And that's my job, and I'm going to fulfill that job and work day in and day out to make sure we protect Canada and protect Ontario as this inauguration happens January 20th.
Bonjour, Jérémy Bergeron, Radio-Canada. Donald Trump is still repeating that he wants to annex Canada to the state. Do you think it's still a joke at this point, or are you worried?
You know, something I'm always concerned when a president of the most powerful country in the world says these statements. But that's not going to happen. And we're going to make sure that we work collaboratively, side by side, with elected officials in the U.S. Keep in mind, it's not a parliamentary system in the U.S. We have the greatest political system in the world, in my opinion, the parliamentary system. The president obviously has a lot of power and presidential orders, but he still has to get through Congress. He has to get through Senate. And there might be some hurdles that he has to cross when he gets there. So let's all just work together. That's what I'm preaching right now to our American friends. We're your strongest allies, closest friends. You know, over 800,000 Americans live up here. Another 800,000 or 900,000 Canadians live in the U.S. We need to work together, and everyone feels the same way.
This will be the last reporter.
Hi, Premier. Alistair McNamara, KX96, 92.9 The Grand. This might be more of a question for the Energy Minister, but in November, your government announced you were beginning talks with 3 communities, including Port Hope and Nanticoke, about new energy generation. Just wondering how those discussions are coming along.
Thank you for the question. So yesterday, the Premier and the government announced the largest energy conservation program in the history of Canada, $11 billion back in people's pockets to reduce energy bills, the same year that the carbon tax is going to rise.
All right, we have just been listening to Ontario Premier Doug Ford talking once again about...
We've been watching a press conference in Curtis with the Energy Minister, Stephen Lecce, alongside the Premier, taking many questions about the incoming looming threats of tariffs from the incoming president, taking a lot of questions on that subject.